Now, a lot of you out there are wondering about a late season, late summer planting for a food plot, and you've done nothing. And, you know, I don't want to be pessimistic, but there's some rules you have to follow to get a good food plot, and they may not be what you think. And for example, planting this area behind me right here. The key is getting seed on the soil and removing competition all at the same time. So how do you do that? You know, I'm looking at an area right now, and looking down at the ground, I can see about 30–40% soil exposure. Meaning when I throw seed on the ground, whatever I choose to plant, it's gonna grow well because sunlight's getting to it and it's getting on the ground at the same time. But we're running into a big problem here. I don't like to use herbicide, but I recommend the use of herbicide because I'm realistic and know that you have to have herbicide to have good food plots. Any kind of rotations of rye, buckwheat, even beans give you low quality food plots, and that might be okay if you have no competition, you have 1,000, 1,200 acres or more, and you have a captive deer herd, they're not gonna leave and go anywhere. Well, then that might be okay because you can get away with cheaper, you know, low value, low attraction food plots, and that might work for you. But for most of us that have to get the most out of every acre and every hour we spend planting and every dollar we spend planting food plots, you have to do your best. So if you're gonna do your best, you have to eliminate weed competition completely because it greatly affects and drastically affects the volume going into the fall. At this point though, we have this weedy field. I want to point out this is a mixed bag of grasses and broadleafs. That means if I come in here right now and I spray just glyphosate, which is the weakest herbicide you can use, I'm going to put Roundup on here. I'm not going to get a very good kill because a lot of the broadleafs like drinking Roundup for breakfast. They're not going to touch them. Pigweed, smartweed, a lot of noxious broadleafs, water hemp. There's a lot of them that won't die when you spray glyphosate on there or just set them back a little bit. However, if you mix that with 2,4-D, which is a broadleaf specific herbicide, about 1.5 pints to 2 quarts per acre of glyphosate, it gives you a really nice mix that becomes very lethal for almost everything I'm standing in here right here, at least 90% of it. So key factors, you have to get sun on the seed, you have to get seed on the soil, and you have to eliminate weed competition. Now, some of the other ways you can do that, you could come in here, you can mow this all down, you could spray it, wait about 10 days, 2 weeks, disc it up, and then you can plant right away, but you're gonna have an explosion of weeds in there because all these weed seeds are gonna go right back into the soil and you're going to create a big weedy food plot and use expensive equipment, discs, tractor to do so. Also, if it's rainy and you're doing this on a hillside like we have, you risk erosion by working up the soil. The worst thing I could do is plow or disc the soil. All my soil is going to end up back in the woods over there like it did in the past. That's what happened in this hill country right here. That's why they have terrace. Our truck right here is sitting on a terrace. They flatten it out, it comes down here, they would plow to the terrace, up from the terrace, so that they manage this area. There's another terrace down in the woods right here, about 30 yards from where we're at. In some areas, there's another terrace beyond that. But bottom line is, these terraces they wanted to manage so that they didn't, and they stopped soil erosion. So that's why tilling and disking and plowing all the time up here is a big no-no. So when you get into late summer right now, what are you gonna plant? How are you gonna do that? I recommend getting the seed on the ground and then spraying. I don't want to see you mow this because if you mow this, now you have a thatch layer that you can't get the seed through. And if you put your seed down first, then that thatch layer can cover up your seed. And even if it germinates, it can't reach the sun, so it dies. So I like this debris and weeds. I like them sitting vertical. So what you can do in here, because you can see the soil, you come in here, you put your seed on the ground, and then you spray that glyphosate 2,4-D right over the top of it and try to enjoy the season. Now, that being said, you can't do that with just any seed. Glyphosate will not hurt anything, any seed that's laying on the ground. However, the 2,4-D, it stays in the ground for up to 2 weeks, usually 10 days, 7 days. So if you get immediate germination on those little seeds, like brassica, meaning rape, turnip, radish, it'll kill that seed. It's a broadleaf, even clover, birchfoot trefoil, alfalfa. It'll kill that little seed growth that's coming in. So when I'm looking at a place like this, I'm not using a glamour crop like a really cool brassica blend that I want to put in here and grow. I wouldn't even recommend you buy my brassica blend that I sell, our Big Boost brassica. Instead, I'd look at more of a pea, an oat, and a rye. The oats and rye will not be killed by the 2,4-D or Roundup that's here, and the pea takes a long time to germinate, and it won't be killed by the 2,4-D because it'll be out of the soil by the time it comes up. That's a really hard seed. Well, it's end of July, and I hope most of you by this point in the year have been able to check out our food plot seed company, WHS Wildlife Blends. We've had clients and customers in almost 50 states by now. And the cool thing is, you know, I don't like you to pay shipping if you don't have to. We're not going to have a giant dealer network. That's not the way we are. We built the business on experience and providing good information and quality products. People order it online. But if you live in the Southeast Minnesota, Southwest Wisconsin area, Nelson Agri Center out of Viroqua and Prairie du Chien is our only dealer in the country. I don't know if that's the way it'll be in the future, but they're very important to us because people in this region can actually travel to them, whether you're in northeast Iowa or northwest Illinois, and pick up that seed without shipping. So give them a call, check them out, and check out the food plot company. Check out the website if you haven't done so already. And I really appreciate you guys giving us a look for your food plot planting needs this season. What I would recommend is I'd take our oats and peas, or our tundra oats and peas, or cold hardy. I'd go with about 50 pounds of oats per acre, and I'd go with 100 pounds of peas per acre. I'd throw that on the ground. I'd spray my 1.1 to 1.5 pints per acre of 2,4-D mixed with 2 quarts per acre of glyphosate. And then I'd let those weeds die and let that green growth. What's really nice about the oats and the peas is when they do germinate, they throw up a leader about 2 feet or 2 inches tall. So that goes through all this thatch and debris. And again, because you're leaving it vertical, those plants can grow up. Now, when you get into mid-September, 3rd week of September, I'd follow up with about 150 pounds of rye per acre. That seed will get right on the ground, and it'll be a great complement to the oats and peas that often get frosted out. The oats will get frosted out later, but still by December. The peas will get eaten down, and that way you have that nice rye covering that'll help you compete with weeds growing into next spring, because they'll stay green all the way through next June, and then you mow or kill the rye out before it gets 2 feet tall. You can also spread buckwheat in next year and follow our ultimate no-till planting. Then you can offer more diversity next year. But for this year, your goal is not ultimate diversity. It's getting crops that are attractive, the deer will enjoy, and that you can get established without competition. You're getting seed on the soil, and that's how you could take a junky area like this, and with just an ATV spreader or sprayer, a handheld spreader, a backpack sprayer, no rake, no tillage equipment, no tractor, no grain drill, you can get a great cheap plot growing before this season if you follow those steps and rules. For planting into a bunch of garbage like this, you got to use some herbicide. Make sure you don't mow, make sure you don't disc. It just makes problems worse. And then you guys can have a great plot going into this fall. Try it. It's not going to be beautiful and perfect because you're going to have a lot of dead stems and weeds hanging out and laying around. You'll get weeds coming in later because there's weed seeds in here. But bottom line is, you'll get a great start to a great food plot, and you're using the conditions and the best seed available to give you a shot at least having a good food plot that'll be an attractive draw all the way through the entire season, this deer season.